What happens when the DM's girlfriend is a kleptomaniac? Let me describe the situation. So I've gotten lucky and unlucky. The group I used to D&D with was my brother and his friends. They didn't mind me tagging in and having a round or two of games. For the most part, things were fine. A few issues here and there, but nothing too major. Of course, this is before she arrived. So we had a 4-person party. I forget most of the names, sadly, as this was years ago. But I remember playing Soth, the son of a mercenary captain trying to rebuild the company after his father's untimely demise, with only one keepsake to remind him of him, a rusty ring of protection. I bring this up now to save time. We had a wizard, an aged old-timer who had gone all out, then got polymorphed into an Archon for those sweet maxed out sats, and a cleric of the Silver Flame. If you can't tell from that, we did a campaign in Eberron. Wish we'd done more in there, but that's another story. The DM was my brother, we'll call him DM for ease sake, and my old character was a warforged who, upon finding a place he could call home, became a blacksmith, which admittedly kinda messed up the party. I tricked him out to be a literal tank and only used him for 3 sessions. Shame really. Enjoyed him a ton. As a note, we were a very casual group. It was more used for socializing and relaxing than role-playing. The story was there, the characters too, but the roleplay was minimal, sadly. So we'd recently secured a castle that was abandoned and infested by monsters until we arrived and cleared it out, and we were slowly building it up. Soth brought his mercenary contingent in as a guard with fair pay for the men and was working overtime as he owed the Warforge. We did a few jobs here and there and eventually got a job with the Silver Flame. It had something to do with a weapon shipment that needed an escort. During this, we met a halfling, Seraphina Tealeaf, a rogue, and if you can't tell from her name, she was an expert. It all began innocently enough. Well, I would have said that, but she was a kleptomaniac in-game, stealing anything from pockets she could, which the DM allowed on rolls and such. Seemed fair. Of course, then we got our first problem. We had to get information from a drow who was doing a magic show, so we did some research into it and it seemed innocent enough. The first incident was that a guard stole from Soth, and only Soth might I add, when he paid his entry fee, his ring. To everyone else, it was a rusty old thing. The bouncers, I didn't know either, decided to keep it. I took offense and threw some threats at them, but apparently no one else thought I was doing the right thing. I did, but hey, thieves be thieves. They get punished for their crimes, and an heirloom with sentimental value like that wasn't something he'd give up on. The DM seemed to let it go, but it seemed more like it just festered. The drow with a harmless magic act volunteered me, and by volunteered, I mean Soth was pointed at, told to come up, and when he refused, was attacked and dealt lethal damage. Apparently, the random drunks can punch you like a trained monk. So it ended up being a knife act. He was shackled against a board with one left loose for him to open, and knives were thrown, missing by inches every time. After the 5th, a drum roll. The DM draws my attention to the undone shackle, making sure I know it's a thing as the drow lines up for one last throw. If I go, we lose the information. We have to find a new lead and end up with a room full of angry people attacking us for ruining the show. If I stay, pain. I actually had to ask if I should get out to the other party members. They said no, and the DM gave me a reflex save, DC 23. I remember that one clearly, as the only way I could clear it was with a nat 20. It was specifically one above where 19 would do it, except I had the ring, and for some reason the DM gave me its bonuses to my saves. I got out on a 19, as the knife impaled where my head just was. Did I mention that we have an instant death rule? If you take a shot to the heart or brain and it does sufficient damage that is more than just a glancing shot, you're dead. Basically, it was supposed to be over half the damage you can do on a dice roll. So if it was a d4 of damage, then 3 and 4 would be death. For a d6, 4 and up, etc. Throwing knives are 1d4, so I could tell that he wanted me dead. Everyone cheers for a few seconds until they see Soth alive. They all freeze, then clap as the drow looks at him like he just lost $1 million on the races. The rogue, whom has yet to formally appear, intervenes, finally, ending the show as we leave the stage for the dressing room. Whilst unshackled, Soth's ring is stolen yet again, and with the precise application of a barrel to the face, he gets it back once more. At this point, the drow introduces us to his compatriot, Seraphina. After a quick chastisement about ruining the show, the fun begins. He tells us about a train that we need to board, the cargo, an army of Warforged, and where it was going. During this meeting, while we are RPing it, and I'm not falling for it for a second, Seraphina steals my ring. For those counting, this is 3 times in one night. Well, about an hour, actually. Now I'm mad. I do what I've done before. Threaten her, demand my ring back, and apparently I'm the villain because I'm starting a fight when all I want is a rusty ring with no visual value back. Unless she had detect magic, she wouldn't know about the enchantment, and we all know that she didn't. We end up rolling initiative. She wins, and it's rogue versus fighter and armor. She stabs me once, and the DM rules that I am unable to keep fighting on account of an arm wound, putting my sword arm out of action from a sneak attack. A sneak attack on a target who is both unflanked and very much aware that you're attacking them. This also apparently put me under 0 HP. Try to work that one out for a level 3 fighter with high con and good hit die rolls, and a rogue who barely knew what she was doing. I'm not even salty about that part. If she took me down, she took me down. But come on. The party eventually persuaded her to give it back to me and healed me up, but the DM still ruled that I had the injury, making me easier to dodge in combat if I was using that arm as my sword hand, or easier to hit if I used my shield in it. As for Seraphina, nothing. Nothing about stealing from the party, nothing about moral virtues, just life goes on. Okay, fine. This began a long exchange of her stealing from me and me trying to get the ring back any way I could. Most of them non-violent, and the DM slowly stacking crippling wounds on my fighter. In the course of 3 hours, for the next session, I had gone from 1 penalty to about 5, 3 of which were long term. But whenever I got a blow on her, it was minor. I was a fighter who couldn't fight, and no one seemed to raise concerns about this at all. So we eventually got onto the train, and once more, she steals the ring, under the pretense of giving me a drink, and I can make a pretty penny from that. Again, without meta knowledge, it was still a rusty ring. So I called her out on this, even going so far as to ask her, "Okay, what makes it so valuable?" She froze, turned to the DM, who promptly told her what it was. "Yeah, that." "And you know this because?" "You told her." "No, I wouldn't. In fact, no one knows what enchantments the ring has aside from Soth and Ironhide, aka the Warforge." Shush, I like Transformers and I was short on names. "So I'll ask again. How do you know?" "She has an item of..." "Show me," as I hold out my hands for the character sheet. "You don't need to see it." "I do. She has this knowledge of my ring because apparently I told her. I'd have given you a she had an inkling after the show, or even he's so zealous in defending it, but I'm challenging on this one." Cornered because he has no DM screen, he sighs, turns to Seraphina and nods. "Seems you don't know he has a ring of protection then." "That's fine. I'll steal it anyway. It's worth a lot on the market." I can't fight her because of all the cripples, but our wizard actually steps in, allowing Soth to walk away. And into a fun little conspiracy. You know all those Warforged? We had about 5 carriages worth of them, and the driver was a lycanthrope that can transform at will, who was planning on turning the Warforge on Eberron. I accidentally stumbled upon him trying to activate them. I wasn't exactly aware of what was going on. Seeing him meddle with a machine, I could make a guess, but in the interest of role-playing, when caught, I tried to play it off as me offering my services as a guard on the train, for a price. Nope, captured with nary a fight and replaced by one of them. The DM openly said, "I think I'll need to use Soth for a bit," which kinda gave the game away. The good news was the team had a symbol that we used all the time to figure out if any of us had been switched. We used the Zoltan salute, and quickly figured it out. The train came to a shuddering halt with the brake pulled, and they all got out, to find me with my armor barely holding on, as 2 of them tried to take me out. The party saved me, and I had to beg for a shield spell, because at that point I had less armor than the rogue, and less health than the wizard began with. And to top it all off, in the middle of the fight with the beast, Seraphina, once more, with everyone in a fight, stole the ring off my finger. At this point, I'm more impressed that she worked it out from under either a shield or a sword than I am at her determination. Well, we won. I called her out again, and she returned it this time. I was getting tired of this, but then the DM worked out how much XP we earned during that session and threw in a kicker. My EXP share was significantly reduced. Also, between sessions, I'd found out that the DM was going off my old Warforge for plot reasons. At that point, I was almost ready to call it in after fighting the DM, the DM's creatures, and the DM's girlfriend. I say almost because the next week came and we had to cancel due to Seraphina's player giving birth. The campaign went on permanent hiatus after that, and I've only played in 2 games of D&D since then, and a Shadowrun game. Suffice to say, that party really scorched some of my love for the game. I still count myself lucky that this is the worst it got for me. Well, seeing as the DM was his brother, I can definitely see it as the brother having it in for him. D&D and family can either go really well, or if there's some family drama, then things can go very poorly. There could be a number of reasons as to why the DM had it in for OP, but it's also kind of weird to have his girlfriend and friends join in on it. What do you all think about this situation?